Do you have any idea what you've done?
I said I was sorry. That's enough.
Don't touch her again. The shout stopped the ballroom cold. A crystal plate lay shattered beneath Maya Reed's shoes, while Serena Vale stood inches away, staring at the stains spreading across her ivory gown. But the question that would haunt everyone later wasn't who caused the accident. It was why billionaire Julian Cross had stood silent for 11 seconds before finally stepping forward. Maya's hands trembled. "I'm sorry," she said. "Someone bumped into me. I didn't mean. Do you have any idea what you just did?" Serena snapped. "I said I was sorry. That dress cost more than you make in a year." A few guests looked away. One didn't. A woman near the champagne table had already lifted her phone. She was recording. Serena pointed toward the broken plate. "Look at this place. Look at these people. You don't belong here." Maya swallowed hard. She wore a simple black catering uniform, but beneath it was a folded hospital identification card tucked inside her pocket. She had come straight from an afternoon nursing lecture, changed in a restroom, and taken the evening shift because her younger brother needed another round of treatment the following morning. None of that mattered to Serena. "I'll pay for the cleaning," Maya whispered. Serena laughed. "With what?" The question landed harder than the broken glass. Maya lowered her eyes. Julian finally moved. "Serena, that's enough." She turned toward him. "Enough?" "Yes. You're defending her." Julian glanced at Maya. For 11 seconds, he said nothing. That silence was already being recorded. Then he looked at Serena. "You're embarrassing yourself." The ballroom erupted into whispers. Serena's face hardened. "You're embarrassing me." Julian stepped between them. "She made a mistake. She ruined my dress." "It's a dress." Serena stared at him as if he had suddenly become a stranger. "You're choosing a server over me." Julian didn't answer. Maya did. No one should have to choose. Julian looked at her. She wasn't crying. That somehow made the moment worse. A security guard approached. Maya immediately stepped backward. "Please," she said. "I can leave." Julian raised a hand. "No. Nobody is removing you." Serena scoffed. "You can't be serious." Julian turned toward the room. "She stays." Nobody spoke. Maya looked at him for a second, then quietly said, "Thank you." But before Julian could respond, the woman with the phone lowered it and whispered to her friend. "It's already uploaded." The room didn't know it yet, but the evening had just escaped the walls of Blackthorne House. And by midnight, millions of people would know exactly what happened. Maya was taken to a quiet service corridor, not because she had been punished, but because the staff manager wanted to keep her away from the guests. Julian followed. He found her sitting on a wooden crate beside the kitchen entrance, staring at her hands. "I owe you an apology," he said. Maya looked up. "You do?" Julian wasn't expecting that answer. "I should have stopped it sooner." "Yes. I'll pay for the dress." "No. I can replace your wages for the week." "No." Julian frowned. "Then what can I do?" Maya looked directly at him. "You could admit that what happened wasn't about a dress." He waited. "You could admit she humiliated me because she thought I was beneath her." Julian's expression changed. "I admit it." Maya nodded. "Then we're done." She stood. Julian stopped her. "Wait." She turned. Why are you working tonight if you're studying nursing? Maya hesitated. My brother. What happened? He needs treatment. That's all. How much do you need? Maya's eyes hardened. I don't need your money. Julian stepped back. I wasn't trying to insult you. I know. Then why won't you let me help? Because people like you think money is always the answer. She walked away. Julian remained in the corridor. For the first time that night, the billionaire had nothing useful to say. Across town, the video was spreading. The clip showed Serena's anger. It showed Maya's humiliation. And it showed Julian standing still. People didn't know what had happened before the recording began. They didn't need to. The 11 seconds of silence were enough. Within an hour, comments were flooding in. By midnight, the video had been reposted thousands of times. By 1 in the morning, reporters were calling the Cross family's offices. At 2:13 a.m., Julian's phone rang. It was his chief advisor. Don't make a statement. Julian sat alone in his study. Why? Because we don't know how much footage exists. Julian stared at the screen. What do you mean? There may be other recordings. His stomach tightened. How many? We don't know. Another message appeared. Then another. A photograph. A second video. A guest had captured Serena threatening Maya after Julian left the ballroom. Julian watched it once. Then again. Serena's voice came through the recording. People like you disappear after one bad night. Julian closed his eyes. His advisor called again. Julian, listen to me. We can contain this. Julian's voice was quiet. No. Excuse me. We're not containing anything. He ended the call. Then his office door opened. His grandmother, Evelyn Cross, stood there. She was 82, sharp-eyed, and still carried the old brass key she had used for decades to open the private archive room in Blackthorne House. She held up her phone. I saw the video. Julian stood. Grandmother. Don't explain. He stopped. She walked closer. Answer one question. What? Why did you wait 11 seconds? Julian looked away. I was trying to stop the situation from getting worse. Evelyn shook her head. No. You were trying to avoid choosing a side. Julian said nothing. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the brass key. Come with me. Where? To the room your father told you never to enter. Julian stared at the key. Why? Because tonight you discovered what your fiancé thinks of poor people. She turned toward the door. Now you're going to discover what your family used to think of them. Julian followed. The archive room was hidden behind a wooden panel at the end of the east corridor. Evelyn unlocked it. Dust-covered boxes lined the walls. She opened one. Inside were photographs. Julian picked up the first. A young woman stood outside a narrow brick building, wearing a plain work dress and holding a sewing basket. Who is she? Evelyn looked at the photograph. Clara. Clara who? Clara Cross. Julian stared. That can't be. It is. Evelyn placed an old handwritten ledger on the table. Your great-great-grandmother. Julian opened it. The first pages contained expenses for thread, fabric, rent, bread, and coal. Then he saw something written in faded ink. 3 shillings earned washing uniforms. 1 shilling saved for the business. 2 shillings for supper. Julian looked up. She was a servant. Yes. In this house. Evelyn nodded. She worked in this very building before it belonged to us. Julian stared at the photograph again. Evelyn's voice softened. Clara didn't inherit this family's wealth. She built the first piece of it. Julian turned another page. There was a sentence underlined 3 times. He read it aloud. Never let comfort convince you that you are worth more than the person standing beside you. Silence filled the room. Evelyn closed the ledger. Your family spent generations preserving the fortune. She looked directly at him. Somewhere along the way, we stopped preserving the reason it existed. Julian thought about Serena. Then Maya. Then the 11 seconds. His grandmother stood. Tomorrow morning, your board will tell you to protect the family. And what should I do? Evelyn walked toward the door. That depends. On what? Whether you're prepared to lose something. Julian followed her into the corridor. What? She looked back. Everything you thought made you important. By sunrise, the Cross family's board had scheduled an emergency meeting. And Julian had no idea that by the end of it, he would have to choose between the family fortune and the woman who had just taught him what it was worth. If you're still with this story, subscribe now, because what happens inside that boardroom changes far more than Julian's engagement. The next morning, Julian entered the boardroom alone. Everyone was waiting. And nobody intended to let him leave unchanged. The first voice came from Julian's uncle. You will issue a statement. Julian sat at the end of the table. What statement? That the incident was misrepresented. Julian looked around. Was it? Nobody answered. His uncle leaned forward. Julian, this isn't about whether Serena behaved appropriately. It's about the company. No. The room went quiet. It is about both. His uncle sighed. You're emotional. Julian looked at him. I'm finally paying attention. The legal advisor slid a document across the table. Sign this. It states that the company regrets any misunderstanding. Julian didn't touch it. Where does it mention Maya? It doesn't. Why? Because mentioning her creates additional liability. Julian pushed the document back. Then I'm not signing it. His uncle's expression hardened. You have a wedding approaching. No. What? There is no wedding. Everyone stared at him. Julian stood. The engagement is over. He walked out. Serena was waiting downstairs. She had seen the headlines. She knew. You didn't. Julian stopped. I did. She stepped closer. You're ending this over a server. No. Then over what? Over what you revealed about yourself. Serena's eyes narrowed. You think you're better than me now? Julian shook his head. No. He removed the engagement ring. I think I should have asked myself that question before I proposed. He placed the ring in her hand. Serena stared at it. You'll regret this. Maybe. You'll lose everything. Julian looked at her. Then I'll finally know what I actually have. She walked away. But Serena wasn't finished. That afternoon, she released a statement claiming Maya had deliberately exaggerated the confrontation. She described herself as overwhelmed by an accident. Then she made the mistake that destroyed her version of events. She claimed there was no reason Maya should have been carrying a tray near her. Within minutes, another employee posted the event staff schedule. Maya had been assigned to that exact table. Then a second guest uploaded footage showing another server accidentally colliding with Maya from behind. Serena's story collapsed. But Julian's problem became larger. He had publicly admitted his failure. Now people wanted to know what the Cross family intended to do next. Julian visited Maya. She opened the door but didn't invite him inside. I know why you're here. I want to apologize again. You already did. I wasn't finished. Maya waited. I should have stopped it before you had to defend yourself. Yes. I can't change that. No. But I can change what happens next. Maya crossed her arms. How? I want the foundation to help with your brother's treatment and your tuition. Her expression immediately changed. No. Maya. No. You don't even know what I'm offering. I know. Why won't you accept? Because if you help me personally, everyone will say I'm the exception. Julian stared at her. She continued. If you really mean what you said, don't rescue me. What should I do? Fix the reason people like me need rescuing. That sentence stayed with him. The following week, Julian demanded access to the Cross Foundation's financial records. The director resisted. Julian threatened to replace him. Then the numbers appeared. He expected inefficiency. He found something worse. Millions had been spent on gala dinners, private events, luxury venues, and scholarships reserved almost entirely for students from elite schools. Meanwhile, emergency medical grants had a waiting list stretching for months. Julian stared at the spreadsheet. How much did we spend on the winter gala? 2.4 million. And healthcare assistance? 400,000. For the entire year. Yes. Julian leaned back. Something inside him shifted. The problem wasn't one cruel woman. The problem was a machine that had learned to call itself charity. He called an emergency board meeting. We're changing the foundation. The director laughed. You don't have the votes. Julian looked toward Evelyn. She had been sitting silently in the corner. She placed a folder on the table. I do. The director stopped smiling. Evelyn had retained enough voting authority to force the restructuring. But she didn't make the decision for Julian. She simply said, tell them why. Julian stood. Because we're spending money to look generous instead of using it to make people less vulnerable. Nobody spoke. We're creating emergency healthcare grants, working student scholarships, vocational programs, and family support. One board member shook his head. That isn't the foundation's traditional purpose. Julian answered. Then our traditional purpose is the problem. The board threatened resignation. Julian accepted. He was prepared to rebuild it without them. Maya eventually agreed to join an advisory panel, but only after demanding that the panel include nurses, teachers, care workers, and people who had actually used social services. Julian agreed to every condition. Then Maya received an invitation to appear on television. She almost refused. Her brother convinced her. You're not going there for them, he told her. You're going there for everyone who has been treated like they don't matter. Maya appeared on the program 2 days later. The interviewer expected anger. Instead, she spoke calmly. I don't hate wealthy people, she said. I don't think money makes someone cruel. She paused. I think believing money makes you more important than another person is what makes people cruel. The interviewer asked what she wanted from Serena. Maya answered. Nothing. What about Julian? Nothing. What should change? Maya looked into the camera. The next person in a uniform should be treated like a person before they have to prove they deserve it. The clip went viral. Hospitals shared it. Nursing students shared it. Workers posted their own stories. The foundation received thousands of applications. Julian watched the interview alone. He smiled when Maya challenged the interviewer. Then his smile disappeared. Because he realized something he hadn't expected. He didn't admire Maya because she had survived one humiliating night. He admired the person she had become afterward. Months passed. Julian and Maya kept crossing paths through the new foundation programs. They talked. They disagreed. They laughed. Nothing happened quickly. Maya once caught Julian trying to approve a project without consulting the local staff. She took the paperwork from his hands. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" "Deciding what people need without asking them." Julian laughed. "Fair." She handed the papers back. "Good." Their conversations became longer. One evening, after a community health event, Julian walked beside her toward the parking lot. "You know," he said, "you've criticized almost everything I've done." "Not everything." "Name one." "The coffee." He laughed. "You hate my coffee. It tastes like expensive water." For the first time since the scandal, Maya laughed without thinking about cameras. But their growing closeness created another problem. Someone photographed them leaving the health center together. The next morning, headlines appeared. Billionaire heir dating former catering worker. Maya stared at the headline. Julian called her. "I can make them stop." "No. I can. I don't want you controlling the story." "What do you want?" "The truth." "And what's the truth?" Maya hesitated. "I don't know yet." That answer frightened them both. Because neither wanted their relationship to become another transaction. Then, just when they were beginning to figure it out, Maya received an email. She had been accepted into an advanced nursing program in another city. The opportunity was everything she had worked for. But it meant leaving Julian behind. She called him. "I got in." Julian smiled. "You should go." She waited. "That quickly?" "Yes." "What about us?" Julian's voice softened. "We'll find out." Maya looked down. "You're not going to ask me to stay?" "No." "Why?" "Because I love what you're becoming." There was silence. Then Maya whispered. "That's the first thing you've said that makes me believe this could actually work." The distance began. And for the first time, neither of them knew whether the transformation that brought them together would survive the life waiting beyond the estate. Maya left for the nursing program. Julian stayed behind. They called when schedules allowed. Sometimes they argued. Sometimes they went days without speaking. But neither walked away. Julian continued rebuilding the foundation. Maya continued training. Then Evelyn's health began to fail. One afternoon, she called Julian into her room. The old photograph of Clara sat on the table. Beside it was the brass key. Evelyn held out a small velvet box. Inside was Clara's ring. Julian stared at it. "You're giving me this." "I'm lending it to you." "Why?" "Because family heirlooms become dangerous when people forget what they mean." Julian touched the ring. What did it mean to Clara? Responsibility. Evelyn smiled. Not wealth. Responsibility. She closed his fingers around it. Don't give it to someone because they make your life look beautiful. Julian understood. Give it to someone who makes you want to become better. Months later, Maya returned. She had completed her advanced nursing training. Julian met her at the train station. Neither made a dramatic speech. He simply smiled. Welcome home. Maya smiled back. It feels strange calling it home. Why? Because I left thinking home was a place. She looked at him. Now I think it's people. Julian reached for her hand. They walked away together. But Julian had one more place to show her. Blackthorne House had changed. The ballroom was no longer reserved for private parties. The former dining hall had become a community clinic. The library offered free evening classes. The garden hosted food drives, health screenings, and scholarship meetings. Maya stepped through the doors and stopped. This is different. Julian nodded. Very. Why? Because you were right. She looked at him. About what? We didn't need another charity event. He pointed toward the clinic. We needed another door. Maya smiled. Then Julian led her into the garden. There were no cameras. No reporters. No crowd. Only Evelyn sitting beneath an old oak tree. Maya walked toward her. Evelyn stood slowly. I've been waiting to meet the woman who made my grandson uncomfortable enough to change. Maya laughed. I didn't do that. Evelyn looked at Julian. He did. Then she stepped aside. Julian was holding the velvet box. Maya's smile disappeared. Julian. I know. He opened the box. The old ring caught the afternoon light. I don't want you to become part of my world. Maya's eyes filled. I want us to build one together. She looked at the ring. Then at him. What happens if we disagree? We will. What happens if I get a better job than you? I'll ask you for career advice. She laughed through her tears. What happens if I hate your coffee forever? I'll accept my fate. Maya shook her head. You're ridiculous. I know. She looked at him for several seconds. Then she said. Yes. Julian slipped the ring onto her finger. Evelyn smiled. But the story wasn't about a proposal. It was about what happened afterward. Their wedding was held at Blackthorne House. The same ballroom where Maya had once stood humiliated was filled with nurses, teachers, students, neighbors, small business owners, and families who had benefited from the foundation. There were wealthy guests too. But nobody was separated by status. Julian stood before them. I used to think leadership meant having the power to decide what happened to everyone else. He looked toward Maya. I was wrong. He continued. Leadership begins when you realize another person's dignity is not yours to grant or remove. The room was silent. Maya took the microphone. People sometimes think kindness means being weak. She looked around. It doesn't. It means you have enough strength not to become cruel when cruelty would be easier. Julian reached for her hand. The applause came slowly. Then it filled the room. Years passed. The estate remained open. The foundation grew. Maya became a respected nurse and later helped expand community healthcare programs across the region. Julian continued running the family business, but every major foundation decision now began with a question. Who is missing from this room? And then came the day Maya returned to the estate with her daughter. The little girl ran through the garden. Mom. Maya turned. Slow down. Her daughter pointed toward the enormous building. Did you live here? Maya laughed. No. Then who did? Maya looked toward Julian. People who once thought a place like this wasn't for people like us. Her daughter frowned. Why? Maya crouched beside her. Because sometimes people confuse having more with being more. Her daughter thought about that. Are they still like that? Maya looked around the garden. A nurse was speaking with an elderly man. 2 students were studying beneath a tree. A family was receiving groceries. Children were playing near the fountain. No, Maya said. Not this place. Her daughter smiled. Why not? Maya pointed toward the open doors. Because someone finally decided they should stay open. Julian walked toward them. He had aged. So had Maya. But the garden looked almost exactly as it had on the day he proposed. Their daughter ran to him. "Dad!" He lifted her into his arms. Maya watched them. Then she looked toward the old building. For one brief moment, she remembered the shattered plate. The stain. Serena's voice. The 11 seconds of silence. And the strange question Evelyn had forced Julian to answer. What was the family's wealth actually worth? Maya no longer needed the answer. It was visible everywhere. In the clinic. In the scholarships. In the students who no longer had to choose between education and food. In the families who could walk through the estate without being asked whether they belonged. Julian came back to her. "You okay?" Maya smiled. "I'm more than okay." He looked toward their daughter. She asked why we keep the doors open. "What did you tell her?" "The truth." Julian smiled. "What truth?" "That people shouldn't need permission to be treated with dignity." He nodded. Then Maya looked at the old entrance. Years earlier, she had stood there believing the entire world had decided she was insignificant. Now the same doorway stood open behind her. No security guard deciding who belonged. No velvet rope. No invitation required. Just an open door. And that was the detail Maya remembered most. Not the dress. Not the scandal. Not the headlines. The door. Because on the night everything changed, someone had tried to make her disappear through it. Years later, she walked through the same door by choice, holding her daughter's hand. Julian walked beside her. And behind them came everyone else. The fortune had survived. The mansion had survived. The family name had survived. But the old way of thinking had not. Maya looked at her daughter and said quietly, "Remember this." Her daughter looked up. "What?" "Never decide someone's worth by the room they stand in." She squeezed her daughter's hand. "Because one day, you might be the person who decides whether that door stays closed." Her daughter nodded. Then she ran ahead. Maya and Julian followed. The old estate disappeared behind the sound of children's laughter. And perhaps that was the real ending. Not that a billionaire chose a woman from a different world. Not that a cruel woman lost her status. Not even that a family fortune was redirected. The real transformation was simpler. A place built to separate people became a place that connected them. A man who once stood silent learned to speak. A woman who was treated as invisible found her voice without losing her kindness. And a family that once measured success by what it owned learned to measure it by what it was willing to give. Because money can buy a beautiful house. It can buy an expensive dress. It can buy silence for a while. But it cannot buy dignity. That has to be given freely. And kindness has to be chosen. Again and again. Especially when nobody is watching. If this story reminded you that one act of courage can change more than a single life, subscribe for more stories about resilience, redemption, and the kind of kindness that leaves a mark long after the moment is gone.